Well, good morning, lovely ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who have followed the videos for a while, this is still Steve Collins, coming to you from beautiful, foggy San Antonio, Texas, the second most powerful, passionate, purposeful coach and speaker in the world. If it gets a little freaky with me walking, I'll stop what I'm doing so that we can have a chat, okay? In fact, I might as well do that. Normally, I'm driving in the car. I have a direction that I'm taking every morning. I know where I'm going to be. I know what I'm going to be doing. And so it makes it easy for me to make those videos. So I'm going to be still so that we're not shaking up all over the place. First of all, I hope you guys are doing great. It's my intention to get back to these videos. It's been all hands on deck at Voice of One at Keller Williams Heritage, where I serve as their full-time coach. And we have just been pouring into the city and into agents to make sure everybody has everything that they need to continue serving their clients well, and that they're protecting themselves and following the direction and leadership of the country in terms of self-distancing. But I want to have a conversation with you this morning because it's going to be very helpful. And it's this: I'm going to give you the how to not walk in judgment. It's a how-to process of how not to walk in judgment. And this might not apply to you. Maybe it applies to some folks that you know that struggle with that struggle with a judgmental attitude or assigning issues. If you have challenges with anybody, especially if there's people that say that you don't like, in particular, stuff that you're hating on, those are very subtle forms of judgment. And the judgment basically means this: you think of them lower than God created them to be thought of. So let's put it that way, okay? You think of somebody in a manner that's less than who they actually are as a unique, one-of-a-kind human being given the gift of life on this planet, just like you and I. So it's been said, be careful when you think you have an insecurity issue, if you will. Be careful when you walk into a room and you feel less than others. Because if you walk in and feel less than others, then that means there will be a day you walk into a room where you feel better than others. So your value ideally should come from the fact that you are a child of God, that you are uniquely created, that your fingerprint is different than every other fingerprint on planet Earth, and that God knows the number of hairs on your head, according to my Bible. And so you are unique and special. Your value and your worth doesn't come from what you drive, where you live, what you make, what you do for a living, the relationships you have, the purse you have, the shoes you have, the car you have, the stuff you have, the relationships you have. Your value doesn't come from any of that stuff. And people who assigned their value to those external things, when those external things are taken away or removed, they find themselves in a pretty bad place. People jump off buildings when they attach their worth and value and identity to stuff and things, all right? So our value, first and foremost, comes from the fact that we were given life by our Creator, and here we are with one another. How do you avoid judgment? You avoid judgment by speaking something when you have the judgment. It's something you have to actually say. And here's what it is. Y'all ready? This is the key. It'll change your life. Share this video, change other people's lives. You say this when you find yourself with a judgmental thought, because like we talk about in our mindset, you can't keep a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from landing in your hair and building a nest. Meaning, you might not be able to control the first thought you have. However, you can decide if you're going to dwell on that thought, if you're going to agree with that thought, if you're going to let that thought get into you and get you all jacked up and worked up. So you might not be able to stop the first thought you have, but you can definitely make a decision whether you're going to dwell on it and accept it and receive it and go with it. So as soon as you have the judgmental thought about that person, okay, as soon as the thought hits, you have the ability to immediately address it by saying this: if I knew their whole story, it would totally make sense how they're showing up right now. Let me say that one more again for all y'all. When your judgmental thought for that person shows up and hits, you say it. Maybe not out loud in front of them, but you memorize this and you say to yourself, if I knew the whole story behind their life, how they're showing up right now would make total sense. You see, let me tell you what you don't have. Here's what you don't have. You don't have the whole story. You don't have the history. You don't have the understanding. You don't have any of the story that makes up that person's life up until now. In my book, which by the way is now on Audible and on iTunes for cheap. If you buy it, it's a couple bucks, $2, $3, $4, something like that. If you buy it and you don't like it, I'll give you your money back and send you a signed copy of the book. If you say this book sucks, I won't do it. But it's called Like, L-I-K-E by Steve Collins. In one of those chapters. I have chapter that's, I twisted the scripture a little bit. Scripture says, judge not lest you be judged. The measure you judge out to others will be measured back to you. I have a chapter in the book called Judge Not Lest You Be Stupid. Okay, and here's the concept of that chapter. I say, imagine if you were on a date going to an opera at a theater in the evening, and as you're pulling up to a parking space several blocks away, the sun is out, the birds are chirping, it's a beautiful, wonderful day, and you and your love go to this wonderful event, and you have this incredible evening at this opera. And as you're leaving the event and people are walking back to their cars, you stay in the theater a little bit and just discuss what's going on and how much you enjoyed it. And then you make your trek to go outside, to go back to the car. Now, on your way back to the car, I want you to go with me in the theater of your mind and really allow yourself to step into this story, if you will. As you're walking back to the car, you notice that all of the street lights are out for the next several blocks as you're walking back to the car with your love. And as you're walking back to the car with your love, and you notice all the street lights are out, you notice there's very few people on the street, and it feels a little creepy. It feels a little eerie. And in the distance, you see an orange little bitty light up a little bit, and you realize that it's the end of a cigarette. And as this ominous figure gets a little bit closer, every time they take a drag on the cigarette, that orange light lights up the face, and you begin to see somebody. They're wearing a dark hoodie. You can see the face is dirty. There are piercings and tattoos. The sleeves are rolled up and there's tattoos up and down the sleeves. There's stringy hair hanging out. You see this chain hanging out by the wallet. You see a knife on one side, on the other, just in a knife pack. And as they get even a little bit closer, you can see the look in their eyes. And you immediately think, oh my gosh, okay, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? That's the question I want to ask you right now. Do you cross over the other side of the street? What do you do? How are you feeling? What's going on with you as you're assessing that situation? Well, if you're a normal human being, you may be concerned for your safety. You may be a little bit worried. Who knows what you may be thinking, okay? But now I want you to back off of that story, and we're going to play the story out again. But imagine that you were single, and you were a woman, and you were leaving the opera by yourself. And as a single woman, you were walking down the street, and you saw the same thing in the same sequence. How might you feel? Until when he takes a drag on that cigarette and lights up, you see a familiar look. You see a familiar face. You notice the gait, the way that they're walking, very familiar. And as you get closer, you realize this is your son, who's now 23 years old, who ran away at 15 years old. And you look at him tattered and bruised, and you are immediately flooded in your mind with those early childhood memories of being beaten and abused by a drunken husband, a drunken father who would abuse you and abuse him, who would put his cigarette butts out on this young man's arm and curse him and tell him he would never amount to anything. And as he got older, at 15 years old, coming home one night, he saw your husband beating you, and he got involved in it and tried to fight him off, and he was beaten to a pulp and said, I'm leaving home and I'm never coming back. Your vision of that young man is completely different than the vision before, because you have compassion, you have mercy. Everything makes sense because you know the whole story. You are not held back in a judgment based on a simple interchange or a simple experience or a simple meeting. The judgment is not there because you have the whole history, which helps you to recognize and make sense of what is going on. You ever run into a difficult person? You ever run into a mean person? You ever run into somebody who just treated you like crap, or just treated you disrespectfully or dishonorably, or was just downright ornery, and you just, I just don't like that person? Every time a judgmental thought rises up in you, you have the opportunity to speak it, certainly to think it, and saying, you know what? If I knew the details of their life, if I knew their story, how they're showing up right now would make total sense. If you knew how they were raised, if you knew their home life, if you know how their parents spoke to them, if you knew what happened to them where they were children, if you saw the abuse, or if you saw the defilement, or if you saw someone hurt them and scar them and wound them, or if you saw a series of being bullied or heartbreaks or rejections or just brokenheartedness and failed relationships and struggles and internal issues, if you knew the history of that human being that you are judging in the moment, if you knew their history, if you had God's eye view, if you had every detail about what happened in their life from the moment they were born to the moment they showed up in front of you with that energy, if you knew the whole story, you wouldn't judge them. You would have compassion, and it would make sense to you. And you would realize what they said and how they're behaving really doesn't have a whole lot to do with you at all. It's really not about you. It's stuff they're carrying around with them. So how to not be judgmental? Good morning, Patty. How to not be judgmental? You have to speak it. You can't keep the bird from flying over your head. You can keep it from landing in your hair and building a nest. You can't stop that first thought. All of us have those first judgmental thoughts. Well, he's a jackass. Well, she's a wench. Well, he's a whatever. And that might just be in your marriage. Okay? You can't stop those first thoughts. You just can't stop those first thoughts. They just hit. You can decide whether you're going to take them in or not. You know, we were talking about mindset yesterday as a double-edged sword. If you think of a double-edged sword, you have a sword that has two sharp edges. One edge is the responsibility you have to say, you will not be allowed in my mind. I will not let you in my mind. I won't let you in fake news. I won't let you in negativity. I won't let you in fear. I won't let you in doubt. I won't let you come and wreak havoc. You can fly over my head, but that's all you're getting. You're not going to build a nest in my hair. I'm not going to dwell on you. You don't get to come in. There's a vigilant responsibility to guard the thoughts that you allow to come into your mind. Your responsibility. That's one side of the sword. You will not come into my mind. I will not dwell on you. And the other side of that sword is you are welcome. You can come in. You get a pass. You get to come on in. I'm going to take you in. John Maxwell, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy. I'm going to take you in. I'm going to take in what you have to say. I'm going to listen to what you have to say. I'm going to invite you in. My mentor, Zig Ziglar, said this: you are where you are and what you are because of what has gone into your mind. And you can change where you are and what you are by changing what goes into your mind. You can't keep that bird from flying over your head. You can't keep that first thought, that first judgmental thought. But listen to the wise words of the Bible. Judge not, lest you be judged. And with the intensity and the measure and the aggressiveness of the judgment you judge someone else, it's going to come right back on you. So if you choose to walk in this foolish judgment, just know you are setting yourself up to be judged as well. But if you walk in a mercy, if you have a compassion, if you have an understanding that if I knew this person's whole story from birth to right here in front of me, how they said and did and acted the way they said and did it, it would make sense to me. Now, that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it, like, hey, well, I'm cool with that. Abuse me, speak to me however you want. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it all right. What it does, though, it keeps your heart free from the entanglements in this web of toxicity of judgment. And it keeps you from feeling superior to other people, because that's what the judgment is. I cannot believe they did that. Me and my superior intellect and education would never behave that way. That's the problem with it, is that it makes you think you're better than you are. And I have some news for y'all. Everybody's feces has a negative aroma. Yours don't smell like flowers. We all have issues. We all have challenges, and we all have these things that will come up in us. And if we are going to remain judgment-free, we have to have a conversation in our head. And it's this statement. When the thought comes, you can say, if I knew the whole story, from birth to now, totally would make sense how they're showing up the way they're showing up. So I'm just going to extend mercy. I'm going to extend grace and compassion. Now, I may not stay in a relationship with them, and I may not hang out with them, and I may not want to be around them, because ain't nobody got time for that. Because I have my two-edged sword for protecting my mindset, which my mindset affects how I'm thinking, and how I'm thinking affects how I'm feeling. And Steve Collins wants to feel awesome all the daggum time. I don't have time to be down. I don't have time to be all messed up. I don't have time to do that. There are too many wonderful things available to all of us, even during this coronavirus season, that we can look forward to and be grateful for. In fact, I'll challenge you, if you haven't gone on Facebook and looked up KWH hashtag 30hard, join the team, join the group, do the 7 daily disciplines that we're doing for the month of April. Be a part of that. Get involved. Bring some certainty back into your life. You'll be glad that you did. There's a really neat community of people who are bringing an intentional difficulty into their life above and beyond this that they have control over. Okay, so I hope you'll choose to participate in that. But again, I will end with how I began. How can you live a judgment-free life? You have to say it as soon as a judgment hits and go, no, if I knew their whole story from the moment they were born until now, I would totally get how they're behaving that way and how they're showing up that way. And it really doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with them. And then you want a bonus? Let me give you guys a bonus. If you really want to take it to the next level, you don't just avoid judging them. Pray for them. Pray for them. Father, they must have a really injured heart. Would you bring them some healing? Surround them with people who can help them work through that. Lead them to relationships that can help bring some healing. Because here's what I found, ladies and gentlemen. People who have been hurt or are being hurt will hurt other people. And people who have been healed or are being healed will heal people. I hope today you choose to be a healer. And please share this video with anybody that you think might benefit from it. Love all y'all. Stay sane in Coronaville, y'all. We're going to get through this. Have a great day.